Morning. This is Martin Drummond with Progressive Democratic Party Headquarters News. It's Thursday, March 7th.
Tonight, the genius of Albert Einstein.
Okay, Albert Einstein was not a genius. Not any more than anybody else who wants to sit down and think about what our world is. None of what he ever said has turned out to be particularly enlightening. He's most famous for two things. One is E equals MC squared, which really what he was talking about was, the fabric of the universe and the idea that energy can turn into matter and matter can turn into energy. And that whole theory is nonsense, as it turns out, because matter doesn't turn into energy and energy doesn't turn into matter. Energy, everything is made out of matter, and it doesn't turn into energy. Energy is simply matter in motion, just at high speed, and depending on the size of the particles, will tell you what the form of the energy is. But it doesn't turn into, the way that Einstein described it is like it changes into energy. It doesn't change into energy. It's just simply energy because it's matter moving at high speed, and obviously at high speed, the faster it's moving, the more energy there is, right? So I think the way that it turns into energy is when it's slowed down, and that involves collision and a lot of other stuff. But the only thing I'll give Einstein credit for is his love of curiosity, but he's not really any different from anybody else in that respect. There's millions of people who are curious about our world and our universe, and like I said, I've studied all of his theories, and everything he's done has kind of led up to this quantum theory bullshit, and it's all nonsense. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It's so commercial. Everything about Einstein's commercial. Now they're going to talk about
Has been revealed almost 90 years after he displayed part of it. You see, back in the 1930s, Einstein wrote the unified theory. That's what it came to be called. But it was missing some pages. So a lot of scientists were never able to actually figure it out. Well, guess what? Pages have been found. Dozens of manuscript pages written by Albert Einstein himself.
Okay, now this is total bullshit. Pages haven't been found. They knew where they were all this time. What's happened is, and I don't like to fault Jews for looking after themselves. I think everybody looks at themselves, but something about a religion, something about people using their religion to look after just their little group of people I don't know, that just bothers me for some reason. I mean, I don't have a religion, and I don't have a little gang of people with secret handshakes and and stuff to look out after me. I depend on, my religion is being an American. And I gotta say that nationality doesn't seem to afford you that same kind of protection. Maybe that's why religion is so popular. Because it is, after all, just a gang, right? Okay, I digress. Even though it's a really important point that I'm making, I digress. My main point is that what's happened here is that basically, once again, Israel, and it goes from Einstein's papers. Supposedly they've told them that they were missing. No, they weren't missing. Here's what happened to them.
Gravity were different manifestations of a single fundamental field. Came to power, donated his scientific and personal writings to Hebrew University upon his death in 1955.
Okay, see, and you wouldn't expect Russian television to get this wrong, but he didn't donate his papers. Okay? And I think that rightfully these papers should belong to the United States, because that's what his nationality was. Let's listen to that again, because it gets so convoluted here.
University upon his death in 1955. Hebrew University said it had personal writings to Hitler came to power, donated his scientific and personal. Einstein, who settled in the United States after renouncing his citizenship when Adolf.
Okay, first of all, that's wrong. He didn't renounce his citizenship. He was stateless, and he was living in Switzerland most of the time, and then he came to the United States and became an American citizen. So that's wrong. He was an American citizen, though, is what. So what gets me is, and I'm not quite sure who did it, but I'm guessing it's Zionists. So Zionists purchased these papers from, I guess, his estate when he died. So whoever inherited his estate. See, and this is the thing about this story that I'm doing right here is, as usual, it's all mysterious. And what I've discovered just the other day, I discovered this idea that when things become mysterious, there's usually evil at work. Because evil doesn't want you to understand what's going on. All they want you to understand is what they want you to understand. That's the whole, the success of deception is that they convince you by just allowing you to have certain information, right? Well, in this case, I think that's absolutely the case, because I think that, so if I had to piece it together, and I'm sorry for sounding so confused here, but there's no information. They tell you somebody bought the papers and then donated them to Israel. Now Israel kept them secret all this time while promoting this. I'm guessing the Zionists promoted, because they see a Jew and they say, oh, well, let's make him the quintessential genius. Let's promote the idea of genius. And even though it doesn't really exist. I mean, there's millions of people thinking hard about physics and every other type of science and and human understanding, right? And the true nature of the universe is still unknown, and Einstein didn't really explain it any better than anybody else, and 90% or 100% so far of what I've read about how he explained it is wrong. I do give him a lot of credit for being interested, and that's great, but the idea of particle physics has been around since people have been around. This isn't something he invented. He didn't invent the atom, which is just an idea and doesn't have any existence. I mean, atoms are just particles, and particles at different levels do not technically act like what we have as the scientific theory of atoms so far. I mean, yes, they're particles. Okay, so I don't want to get into all that. My point is here, what I was talking about here is how somebody took, I mean, basically what should be the property of the world and sold it to Israel, or gave it to Israel, whatever, and they've kept it hidden all this time. You know, it's just every time I turn around, it's Israel, 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 Zionist, Zionist, Zionist. They're always doing stuff, and I think it's out of self-preservation, I really do, but it's just so selfish. I mean, I end up right back in that old trap of anti-Semitism, right? Because being selfish is the Jewish image that I grew up with. When I was a kid, I was subject to tons of anti-Semitism. It's ubiquitous amongst the white European communities, believe me, Christians. But and are they selfish, or are all people selfish? Probably all people are, and then everybody hates everybody else's selfishness, right? Okay, but getting back to these papers, they should have never been given to somebody who was going to keep them secret for 80 years. So, you know, this little piece of history has been kept secret by them for 80 years, so that now they can, and now they own it. So it's like everything else that Israel does. It's like, yeah, we're going to let you know about it, but guess what? We own it. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing just seems like a bunch of bullshit to me, to be quite honest. And Einstein it's pop science is really what it comes down to. Kind of like pop music, you know. You know, I don't like anything that's pushed upon me. I don't like music that's pushed on me. I don't like names of people that's pushed on me, whether they're actors or musicians or whatever, or scientists. And since I was 0 years old, I've had this Albert Einstein pushed upon me. Even though when I started getting into his theories, they're nonsense. I mean, his particle physics is all nonsense. And the reason I say that is because I'm a particle physicist, and I delve into all the theories and everything, and produce my own theories. I have my own Facebook group, The Philosopher's Stone, and I think I lay out a much more cohesive and realistic set of theories considering the universe than Einstein ever even thought of. My theory is that the universe, the nature of the universe, is based upon infinity. Really, is what I come down to in my theories. That there are particles that are infinitely larger and infinitely smaller, and that the ratio between them, the size and the density and there's infinite densities. All of these are, to me, are dimensions of the universe. They've existed over time, which is infinite in both directions. No beginning, no end. Space is infinite. If you started walking out into space, you could just walk forever in any direction, assuming kind of some things, but like that there's no barrier or no end to the universe. You know, I mean, Einstein's theory of the Big Bang, well, is that the universe is expanding and that you get out there, and if you go past, which I don't know if that would be possible, but the concept is that you would end up in total vacuum. You know, in my theories, there's no such thing as solid or vacuum. Everything is a ratio between solid and vacuum that exists in an infinite universe. So these concepts are mind-blowing, I admit, and I don't expect you to like try and absorb them in the 2 seconds, but my point is that just like me and millions of other people, there's you know, if you believe in that Einstein's a genius, and there's millions of us, and some of us are going to be closer to the reality of, you know, of it all than others. And Einstein wasn't any closer than anybody else. In fact, when I look at his theories, like on the bent universe and things like that, they don't match up with reality. And even he continuously had to change up what he had to say, because he knew that he wasn't making sense.
Hitler came to power, donated his scientific and personal writings to Hebrew University upon his...
See, now he didn't donate his stuff to Hebrew University.
His death in 1955. Hebrew University said it had received the papers as a donation to its 80,000-item Albert Einstein archives from a foundation in Chicago after they were purchased from a private collector.
So that's how convoluted the acquiring of these papers really are, right? That's what I just said a few minutes ago, is that they were acquired by somebody, obviously bought from the estate after his death. So he had no say in them ending up in Israel. And I would be willing to bet, because I do have a sense for things, and I would bet you that Albert Einstein would be a supporter of the Palestinians at this point, because he was a pretty good guy, you know, overall, from what I understand about him. And I don't think it would sit well with him that just because he was Jewish, Israel is trying to gobble him up and gobble up his pop science. Matter of fact, I don't think he would be too excited at being made into some kind of mathematical god. So, I know this is just like everything else in this world. It's complicated and convoluted and hard to understand. But it just irked me when I first saw this story, that these, quote, missing papers were found. They weren't missing, and they weren't found. A group of Israelis have always had them, and have been playing this whole thing to their advantage. And that's how it works. And unfortunately, they have so much influence in this world that that's just how it is anymore. And it's up to, just like the Israeli-Palestinian problem and all these other problems, it's up to us to break the vicious cycle. Evil has had sway over this earth for way too long, and it's time that we break all these vicious cycles. And I'm not talking about going to war with these people or anything. I'm just talking about realizing, all the people out there who fall for, they watch when like for Americans, they all flock to the TV when there's something about the royal family in England. All this kind of pop bullshit. Everybody needs to wake up and say no more. I'm not going to be a slave to all this pop bullshit. I mean, it's all nonsense anyway. When you fall for that bullshit, you just end up being their suckers, Stop being their suckers. It's disgusting. Okay. I know there's a lot I wanted to say that I haven't said. Maybe I'll cover it. I'll watch this and come back to it.
Going out of business, huh? Yeah. Get some video before.
So this is Martin Drummond with Progressive Democratic Party Headquarters News signing off. Thanks for for watching and listening.